The strange case of Nancy Pfister. Nancy was a resident of Aspen, one of the richest small towns of America. Aspen is located in the high Rocky Mountains, and its population is so small, less than 7,000. It is one of the most expensive places to buy simply because of its beauty and outdoor activities. Nancy was born in 1956 in a rich family in Aspen. Her father was one of the people who helped build Aspen in the 60s. Her father built the town's first and most elite ski resort for the rich and famous. Nancy's parents were very well known in the whole community, as was she. Nancy was raised in royalty. She grew up entitled and spoilt. Nancy was considered the Queen of Hills as a social butterfly who made party her career. She was quite a famous personality in the town and was friends with famous celebrities and wealthy people. Nancy was like a full package, wild, rich, and beautiful. She never married but slept with countless men. She only had one daughter and one son 10 years apart. She was a woman of soul. She loved drinking, partying, doing drugs, and living her life to the best she could. When her bold nature was attractive to some people, it also triggered some people's hate towards her. She lost many of her female friends because of her indecent behaviour. She always gets what she wants because no one can say no to Nancy Pfister. Nancy had a personality that was considered tough to get along with, according to her friends and relatives. Nancy loved travelling the world as a tour guide. She had a friend who was also her assistant named Kathy Carpenter. According to some of Nancy's friends, Nancy and Kathy were like husband and wife. They constantly rely on each other. But Nancy's behaviour with Kathy was not so ideal. In the winter of 2013-2014, Nancy decided to travel to Australia. She was planning to stay out of town for like 6 months. She decided to rent her house for the time period she's going to spend in Australia. She rented her house to a pair of strangers, a retired doctor, Trey Styler, and his wife, Nancy Styler. The couple recently arrived in Aspen from Denver, hoping to start a new life after losing nearly everything they owned. They were facing severe financial crisis because of some bad investments and Trey's chronic illness. The couple decided to use the little remaining amount that they had to start up a spa business in Aspen, so they took Nancy's place to rent for a few months before starting up their new career. Nancy Pfister invited the couple to stay with her for a month before her departure to show them around the house and to make them feel comfortable in it. But according to Nancy Styler, the moment they had handed her the advance rent money, they became her slaves. Nancy Pfister was a handful to bear. She would order them around, make an uncomfortable environment for them, and so on. After spending a few weeks with them, Nancy finally took off to Australia. The Stylers finally took a breath of relief when she left, but this happiness was not for too long. Nancy accused them of damaging her property and not paying utilities. She threatened to sue them for $14,000. She gave them 4 days' notice to vacate the house, which left no choice but for the Stylers to shift to a nearby motel. Nancy returned in February 2014, months earlier than she was actually supposed to return. After her return to Aspen, she tried to sleep off her jet lag. But when no one heard from her for 3 days, Kathy decided to pay her a visit and check up on her. Kathy entered the house, but nobody was there. She checked everywhere for Nancy but couldn't find her. She entered Nancy's room, which was not in an ideal state, and there was blood on the headboard of the bed. There were a few drops of blood on the carpet and an awful smell coming from Nancy's closet, which was locked. Kathy had the keys to Nancy's closet, as both of them trusted each other so much. She opened the closet and saw something hidden and covered in plastic and sheets, but she somehow knew who it was behind those sheets. Kathy was having a panic attack when she called 911 and reported the murder of her friend. This was big news, not because the murder was a famous personality, but because there was a murder in Aspen. The last murder reported in Aspen was 10 years before Nancy Pfister's murder was reported. The Styles were already under investigation, as Kathy clearly pointed their unpleasant relationship with Nancy out to the police. Nancy Styler's animosity towards Pfister was no secret. She had openly expressed her hatred towards Pfister. She had also given Pfister death threats. The case turned against the Stylers when a city worker found a plastic bag that contained a prescription pill bottle with Nancy Pfister's name on it. He heard about the murder, so he reported it immediately to the police. The police further found in the bag a bloody hammer and a vehicle registration form for the Stylers' car. The worker found the bag in the trash bin while searching for some home items, and this trash bin was just a few miles from the motel that the Stylers were currently staying in. The police sent the stuff found in the bag to the labs for testing. Meanwhile, they kept an eye on the Stylers in the motel room. While spying on the Stylers one day, police found a key on the ground in front of the Stylers' room. This key was for the closet where Nancy's dead body was found. Was it dropped there unconsciously, or was it placed there on purpose? To find this evidence against the Stylers this easily was very suspicious. Like dropping the key, which was an essential part of a murder case, was this careless? It's so weird. The police do suspect that the involvement of a third party may be involved. The couple was taken into the investigation, although they clearly denied the fact that they had anything to do with the murder. The evidence was all against them. When the police found Nancy's body, it was covered in plastic and sheets. It was unrecognisable unless you touched it and uncovered it. Kathy had claimed that she didn't touch Nancy's body then. Then how did she know it was Nancy? In the interview with the police, Kathy told them that she saw the blonde hair of Nancy covered in the blood, indicating that she was murdered by a hit in the head. But Nancy's head was totally wrapped in plastic and sheets, and it was impossible for anyone to see the hair or blood. Adding more into the scene, Kathy took $6,000 and 2 valuable rings from Nancy's safety deposit box just the next day of the murder. This all makes Kathy a strong suspect for the murder, along with the 2 Stylers. The police analysed that it might be possible that the 3 of them were working together to kill Nancy. The 3 suspects were arrested and they spent 3 months in jail. Trey Styler made a confession declaring that the 2 women, Nancy Styler, his wife, and Kathy Carpenter, had nothing to do with the murder, and he was alone responsible for it. In June 2014, just a few weeks before the preliminary hearing, Trey Styler made this confession. They were giving police every detail of the murder. According to Trey, he sneaked out of the motel when his wife was sleeping and came to meet Nancy, just with the intention of talking to her about the decision on suing them. But when he found her sleeping peacefully, the anger inside him raged and he grabbed the hammer nearby and struck a blow to her head. After hitting her one time, he checked her pulse and found she was still alive. He used his doctor's brain and decided to hit the frontal lobe of her head, which will definitely result in her death. He claimed that he was all alone when he did it without anyone's help. Trey was 65 years old, in a wheelchair, too weak to commit the whole crime by himself. Or was he strong enough? Taking in the scenario of the murderer hit Nancy with a hammer to the head, killed her, wrapped her body in multiple plastic sheets and bags, and then dragged her body to the closet and hid her there. The murderer must have been strong enough to flip the queen-size mattress that had the blood stain on it. But looking at Trey's physical condition, it nearly seems impossible for him to do that alone, as he could barely even walk. But the police had nothing against the 2 women after Trey's confession. The 2 women, Nancy Styler and Kathy Carpenter, were released, and Trey Styler, whose real name was William Styler, was accused of second-degree murder of a 56-year-old Nancy Pfister. He was sentenced to 20 years in jail. That was basically a death sentence for him. In August 2015, Trey Styler committed suicide by hanging himself in his cell. Nancy Styler, who was still accused by many for being part of the murders, gets the insurance money after the death of her husband and started the spa business that she had planned to do with her husband. The motive behind the murder of Nancy Pfister was the desperation, rage and anger of Trey Styler, which blinded his senses and triggered him to murder Nancy. Many residents of Aspen still don't believe that Trey Styler was the only one involved in the murder, but the mystery remains unsolved after the death of Trey Styler. What do you think about the story? Do you believe that Trey Styler was all alone in the murder? Or did he cover for his wife because he loved her so much? Are Nancy Styler and Kathy Carpenter also part of the murder? Or are they innocent, as said by the late Trey Styler? Let us know your opinion in the comments section. And please do subscribe for more interesting real stories.